And Malka's's Glow Up. We turn old to gold. Let's go. Don't throw it out. Bring it back to life. Glow up, glow up. Yeah, we make it bright. Stitch it, flip it, turn it brand new. Style so fresh, make the world go. Style it up. No wasting sight. Style it up. We make it right. One upcycle magic. Feel that vibe. Malka's's Glow Up. Shine so.
Welcome to What's on My Table Thursday.
Feel that vibe. Malka's's Glow Up. Shine so.
So today I'm working on some alterations for this dress that needs a bit of love. It's made from this beautiful African fabric, but there are a few things that need fixing. So let's take a look. This dress is too small for my customers, so I needed to make it bigger. Luckily, the seams are 2 inches wide. You have 2 inches on this half and 2 inches here, so overall it's 4 inches total, which gives me enough room to let it out. That's why checking seam allowance is so important when altering garments. Alright, so let's go into the fabric and lining. I absolutely love this African print. The lining, I'm not a fan. It's been sewn with the wrong thread, which affects the durability and finish of the dress. All of that I will have to redo to improve the quality of this dress. I may leave the seams as is because that's how it is. With this dress, it would be quite simple in a way to get to the seams because this is how the seams are sewn. If I am making this dress and I have lining, I would make the lining separate and the dress separate, so when I put them together on the outside you wouldn't see the dots like this. But luckily this person make this in a simple fashion so that it's easy to alter. Alright, so when choosing, if I have to choose a thread to match this dress, you go according to any one of these colors. And personally I would go with the darker color if I'm choosing a thread to make this dress. I have these 3 threads here, and right away against the fabric you can see I can use any one of these. And personally I like this one. This is a bit light, this is a bit dark, but it looks kind of maroony. If you want to use a darker thread, this is a brown. So there are so many choices of thread you can use. So this dress is going to fit so much better once I'm done. Alright, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So right now I'm gonna be opening the seams. I think I'm gonna take out these darts. I finished opening the sides. I also took out the 2 front darts and the back dart. The seams that I open, I'm gonna press them out. I still need to add extra material to the sides in order to get the full width of the sleeve for the lady. I still have to add about 1.5 inches on each side. You'll have to jot down the measurements that you need in order to carry out your alterations. So in this folder I have all my measurements. What I'm going to do is measure across the bust to see if I have sufficient material. In the front I would have to add another 1.5 inches as well across the front to get the measurement. Okay, so I'm straightening the hem in order for me to cut off to the desired length. Luckily, I just need a little bit of the material so I can extend the sleeves. Alright, so this dress was fitted onto the lady on Saturday. So everything is alright across the bust. Alright, so what I'm going to continue with is to finish up the dress. Now that it has been fitted onto the lady, I mark all my seams that I'm going to be letting out here. And in the front, I also brought in the front dart slightly. And then at the back, there'll be no dart. So I'm going to go to the machine and do that. But just before I do that, you notice here at the bottom, you know how they cut it, 1.5 inches at the front longer than the back. I don't know how that's possible, but that's how it ended up by the time I finished all my pinning and stuff. Alright, so I'm going to go to the machine and do that. And again, before I do that, I have my sleeves here. And remember I said I need to add about 1.5 inches on each side of the sleeve in order to extend it because it's too tight. I cut the piece off the hem, and that's what I'm going to use on the sleeves. But first I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to do my stitching onto the bodice of the dress. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is check your measurements. Just make sure everything is matching up. So I'm pinning the shoulders, pinning them together, making sure that they are the same length. Even though I didn't cut anything off the shoulders, I still got to make sure because, as I said, this dress have a lot of issues with it. As you know, everybody cut things different. So even though I didn't have anything to do with my neckline, I still want to make sure it is okay. You can see when I pin this, you can see part of the front on one side is slightly side seams have bigger than the other. Like, so you make sure you pin side seam to side seam in order to figure that out. These are the new darts that I put in, and as you can see, they're equal to one another. This is one and that's the other. And also the length is the same. Alright, so my shoulder, alright, so the sleeves are the same length. The only thing, what I have to do here, around one of the sleeves, as you can see, is much bigger than the other, and all I did was rip this. So far I think I'm happy with this. The only thing here, I have another excess here. I have to shape that up. Okay, and I think all of that is all right. So my focus now is going to be on the sleeves. When I check the measurement of the sleeve here, it's quite small. So as I said, I need to add about 1.5 inches extra onto the sleeve in order to get the full width, plus when I take in the seam allowance to add to the sleeve. I'm just gonna press this. Alright, so this is pressed, and I'm gonna show you a quick and easy way to increase your sleeve width. I'm gonna just put this in half, and I'm gonna cut this, put that aside. I'm just gonna lay my sleeve on my table here. But as this also is a measuring table, a measuring board, I'm gonna line this up onto one of my lines here. I'm gonna take my strip of material, fold it in half again. Alright, and this is just a quick way to do this. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna work on this end. I have it on the fold here. So all I'm gonna do, lift my sleeve up and place this under. When I place this under, I'm gonna make sure and leave enough seam for seam allowance at the end here. Not bringing my sleeve all the way over on this fabric. You just make sure and bring it as close to the edge here as possible. Make sure that the piece of material that you're gonna use is wide enough to increase to the width that you desire. All right, so as usual, my seam allowance is 1 centimeter, so I'm going to pin together up to the 1 centimeter mark, right? And this is how I do this. After you do that, you can literally cut the shape out here like that. All right, so once you've done that, you bring the piece out. Make sure it's nice and flat. So what I'm gonna do next, make sure that your sleeve is on the straight line. This bit is very important because what we're gonna do with this piece here at the bottom is also cut that straight across, but you're gonna leave 1 centimeter seam allowance. So I'm gonna mark this and show you guys what I'm talking about. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see this line straight across here, right? That goes to show that it's lined up with the sleeve hem. However, we're gonna add that 1 centimeter seam along here because this is where we're gonna stitch. So I'm just gonna cut this off. Your pin. So what I'm gonna do next is just mark right here just to indicate where the end of the arm is going to be. I'm going to take the pins out, but when you take the pins out, you keep this in place with the sleeve, and then you remove the other half and you just bring it forward like this. You line it up exactly how it was, right? And then you pin them together. Remember 1 centimeter seam, but down here at the end of the sleeve you're going to come in slightly more, just so you have a nice smooth finish. Alright, so you have one piece at the back here, one piece in the front, and the sleeve is in between the two pieces. So next I'm going to stitch down here my 1 centimeter seam, but I'm going to stop right at the end here up to the 1 centimeter seam that I'm going to stitch across. And at the bottom you're going to come in about 1.5. Alright, so just before I reach the end, I stop about 1 centimeter just before I reach the end. Then I'm going to turn, lift the foot and turn. I'm going to move my sleeve out of the way. And then I'm going to stitch across. Make sure not to get your sleeve caught in the stitch. Alright, and then this is your piece. Why I put the two pieces, because I want it to be neat. I don't want it to have that rough seam going across. Alright, so this is your piece here. I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm going to iron this. Alright, so this is what this looks like. So you have the extension here to make your sleeve bigger. Then we're going to do all the shaping. Alright, so both sleeves are done. Have the extension on both sleeves. Alright, so what I'm going to do is reshape the sleeves, because with sleeves you have the front and the back. With this, how this person made this, there's no difference between the front and the back. It should indicate where your front is and where your back is, and I don't see any notches, no marking to tell that. So what I'm going to have to do is reshape the whole sleeve. So first I'm going to notch the top here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is bring in the arm here slightly, maybe 0.75. I don't want to come in too much, just around the curve here, because that can also lose the shape of across your chest and make it maybe tight or something. So then I'm going to use my ruler what I cut out here is very little, right? And I do that on one side of one sleeve. So if I put this sleeve over onto this, you can see the shape of the sleeve now. Now you can see the shape of the sleeve, you can see the front from the back. So to indicate this, I will give the front one notch, and then I'll give the back 2 notches. Then I'm going to take the one that I cut, and I'll just place it right side together. Make sure that it's right side together and not like this, right? Make sure right side to right side. If the lining is up facing you, you should take the next one lining down, right? Just make sure, because other than that you'll have 2 left side, 2 right side. I like to do this, right? And then you line them up. So what I make sure and do here, the seam that I join here, the piece that I join here, I make sure they line up. And what you can do, use your pins to pin it together so it doesn't move. You can just put a couple of pins, you don't really have to put a whole lot. And then you put your notches in. I know this is gonna be the front, and over here is the back. Right, you still check your sleeves to make sure they line up correctly and everything is nice. You have your center notch. So the next thing I'm going to do is measure straight across. Right, so this is going to be my center mark. Measure straight across and measure for my sleeve width. Perfect. So what I'm going to do, remember we pin the shoulder and make sure that both sleeves are matching. I'm going to measure the front armhole and I'm going to measure the back armhole. When you're measuring something on a curve, right, you just don't lay your tape measure like this, because you will never get the correct measurement. Always take your tape measure and you curve it around the curve. Right, you go around the curve like this. So the front here is 10 and a half. I'm going to mark that down so I don't forget. So that's 10.5. And then you're going to measure the back. Yeah, so once you finish measuring your arm, you go out over your sleeve and you measure around to get the same measurement. Once you do that, you cannot go wrong. And if you're not sure, always measure twice, cut once. Alright, so when I'm done that, I'm going to line up the sleeve. I like to take my pattern master. This will give me a nicer shape, I think. Once you finish shaping the side, you can just bring it over, because they're stitching together. You just bring this over and just line it up once you finish cutting one side. And you always measure. And this is the sleeve, the adjusted sleeve. Alright, so I'm gonna stitch the sleeves, and as usual, they're 1 centimeter seam allowance. The seam, this is one seam here, that's the center seam, and that's the other seam. So that's right under the armpit, so it doesn't really matter. And what I like to do once I finish with this, I like to just stitch it down just a little bit up from the edge here so it stays nice and flat. When you keep down the seam, it doesn't show. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is pin the sleeves in. You're going to have your sleeve like this. What I like to do is pin my side seam first, and then I like to pin on top of the shoulder. So you find your shoulder seam and the notch that you put in your sleeve, and you join those two together. So after you finish that, you should be able to see whether your sleeve is going to fit too tight or too loose. You should have some sort of ease in your sleeve. Baste your sleeves in first. Alright, so one of the reasons why you baste your sleeve in first is you want to make sure of the right fit. You have sufficient ease. Now I finished basting the sleeve, I'm just going to take my pin out. You notice here, just sufficient, not too much. Because if it's too much, you might as well gather it. Alright, so we're going to stitch the sleeve in now. And that's the back, and then this is the front. So I'm just going to go ahead and overlock the seams. Alright, so my sleeves are in, and I also overlock the inside here, and I went ahead and pressed down the seams. Right, so that's everything is finished here on the top. I managed to do the best I can here with this. It's quite difficult to do alterations on other people's work. Very difficult because everybody cut different, they're so different, and you'll find a lot of errors. Alright, so now I'm going to be working on the skirt, and the skirt is a gathered skirt, and all I'm going to do is just stitch around the top and gather it and add it onto the top, onto the bodice. So I have 2 lines of straight stitch, and I like to pull the threads at the bottom. Grab the 2 strands of thread, and I just pull this in. See, I'm just gonna notch the center here. So when I gather, I know that's half of the gathering on one side. I have my top here, and this is my center. That's my center. So I just gathered half of the skirt. So just to show you, all right. And I know this is gathered in too much, but that's not an issue. I just want to show you what I do. And this is the center of my skirt here. I have it marked with a pin, and I put this on the center, and obviously you have your side seam here in the top, and you have your side seam here in the skirt. It also has a pocket. So what you do, you just make sure your side seams are matched together. Adjust your gathering to make it even around the waist. They are lined up here. If you want, you can just put a pin there to secure that. Alright, one more thing. What I normally do, at the back here where I'm going to take the seam allowance, right by the seam allowance, I always take out the gathering right there. If I need to adjust it again so that it fits, I'll go ahead and do that. But you see, as you can see, I don't need to adjust it because it's nice and flat. The reason why I do that is because when I'm ready to put the zip in, I wouldn't have a bulk here for the zipper. Alright, so I'm just going to pin that. I finished gathering, and I also pin the skirt onto the top. What I'm doing here is just pressing the waistline. I'm going to use this piece to stitch it down onto the seam of the lining piece here, because I don't have sufficient. And I think just by adding this would give it a little bit more ease. Stitch this down here and do it on the other side. Then here's where I'm going to put my zipper. Left a little bit of the print fabric out, so I'm just going to turn it like this I'm going to overlock this. Just going to give it a fine stitch along here. Alright, so finish overlocking and just give it a top stitch. Okay, so this is the dress. I have it in half here. So when I put the lining, I want to see how much gathering I need. I'm going to put it right at the center and just go across the waist here to see approximately how much gathering I need. Comes to the end right here. So this, from this end to that, that's all the gathering I need. I put in this separate simply because if the lady don't want it, I can easily take it out. I'm just gonna distribute the gathering around. All right, so that's that. So I am just gonna pin this onto the waist. But when I pin it onto the waist, this is gonna be the wrong side, right? And this is the wrong side. So I'm gonna pin wrong side to wrong side so that at the end you don't get any raw edges on the outside. Okay, so for the lining, I'm gonna put these two together and about 9 inches below the waist. That's where I'm gonna start to stitch. I'm gonna stitch that seam allowance that you use. I'm gonna stitch that from here, 9 inches below the waist, all the way down to the hem. I lost the clip that I made when I was finishing up the zipper, so unfortunately I don't have that.
Malka's glow up. We turn old to bold. Let's go. Don't throw it out. Bring it back to life. Glow up, glow up. Yeah, we make it bright. Stitch it, flip it, turn it brand new. Style so fresh, make the world go.